trade has changed very dramatically. 10 years ago, Europe and North America accounted for something like 22% each of India's foreign trade, and Asia accounted for some 38% of India's foreign trade. Today the pattern is very dramatically different. Asia accounts for more than 50, I think about 52% of India's exports. North America accounts for just 12% of India's exports. Europe accounts for about 20% of India's exports. So over the last 10 years, fortuitously for us, just when USA and Europe are suffering this huge meltdown, our trade, our exports to them, though low, won't impact that badly on our overall export portfolio, because we have diversified our whole export portfolio. And just to put things in perspective, I think about 10 or 12 years ago, overall exports were about $45 billion. Today, software exports alone are about $45 billion. And that tells you how far we have gone. Virtually 50% of the world's back office is in India. And that shows a huge structural shift in how exports have changed. In the old days, maybe 20-25 years ago, India was basically a commodity exporter. Today, it's moved up the value chain. All sorts of exports, including IT and exports, value-added items are exported. But the real worry is the import bill. Much of it is accounted for by the import of oil, and India is nowhere near self-sufficiency in the production of oil products. Add to that the subsidies, which cause a double whammy kind of a problem, which I'll talk about in a minute. So India's balance of trade is adverse, with a $185 odd billion trade deficit. The trade deficit, along with what we call the current account deficit, which is actually sum total of trade and transfers and everything that comes in and goes out of the economy as far as the external sector is concerned. The current account deficit has gone up in the last 1 year from about 3.8% of GDP to 4% of GDP. That's a very significant increase as far as the current account deficit is concerned. And traditionally, current account deficits have been financed by long-term capital inflow called foreign direct investment. Now, that is the mainstay of the US economy. The US economy has traditionally carried a huge current account deficit, and it has always been shored up by vast amounts of capital coming into the US on a long-term basis. And that has held up the whole US economy, and that accounts for why the US is the preferred currency around the world. The greenback is the safe haven, and the US economy is the safe haven. So India's current account deficit, which is 4% of the GDP, has to be funded essentially by foreign direct investment. Now, what is the picture as far as foreign direct investment is concerned? India has been, over the last 5 years, one of the hottest destinations for foreign direct investment. All this negative outlook notwithstanding, the foreign direct investment has increased very dramatically, and continues to increase. In fact, Anand Sharma, the Union Industry and Commerce Minister, just put out a statement yesterday or day before, saying that the inflow, the FDI, the foreign direct investment which came into India in the last 12 months was $50 billion, which is 34 or 35% more than the previous year. Now, I'm not very sure that that's entirely accurate, because some of the other statistics that I have read point to the fact that the FDI was about 30 to 35 billion dollars. Be that as it may, there's still a huge amount of foreign direct investment coming in to the country. This is where the standard and poor outlook turning negative can have an impact. Now, if the FII and FDI inflows into the country get affected, then financing our current account deficit is going to be a problem. If that happens, India will have to borrow to finance it. And if India has to borrow to finance, our external debt will increase. And if that happens, the debt service ratio is going to get affected, and our export earnings will have to be rechanneled into debt repayment. That will have impacts on foreign exchange. So it's a whole, domino effect on everything. The rate of inflation today in India, the headline inflation as they call it, is something like 7 to 8%. But the real worry is that food prices are at about 20%. The inflation in food prices is 20%. Now that is a very big tragedy, because over the last 10 or 15 years, food grains production has increased very dramatically, and we are in excess of some 215 million or 220 million tons. The problem is we do not have adequate storage space. The amount of storage space, covered storage space available, accounts of it vary. One account says there's something like 44 million tons covered storage. Another account says there's 75 million tons storage available, covered storage. Whatever it is, a very large amount of food grains is rotting in the open because of the bumper crops that we have had over the last 3 or 4 years. No storage space, rotting out in the open, and yet our people are starving. That's a real tragedy in India actually. We have enough food grains to distribute free to all the poor. One estimate says that about 10 or 15 million tons of food grains is enough to keep 1 million people fed for a year on the basis of subsistence. So there is plenty of food grains available. FCI godowns are full, but there's a lot of stuff lying out in the open. It's just rotting. It's not coming into the public distribution system. And if all this is channeled into the PDS properly, then there would definitely be downward pressure on the prices of food grains. Vegetables are the area where prices are increasing the most. This 20% increase is mostly to do with vegetables. That has to do with a lot of agronomic practices, the use of pesticides and proper farming practices, which are still not being done very systematically in India. So anyway, inflation is a problem. And what is the root cause of inflation? That other very feared deficit called the fiscal deficit, which is simply put, the government living beyond its means. The fiscal deficit broadly is defined as the difference between the government's income and the government's expenditure. The government is simply spending far more than what it can afford. We often talk about the fiscal deficit being 5.2% of GDP. That's the number that everybody talks about. But you will be shocked to know that India's fiscal deficit is more than that of Greece. It's actually about 11%, 10 to 11%. Because to the deficit of the center, you have to add the deficit of the states. So in actual fact, the fiscal deficit is somewhere in the region of 10 to 11%. And that puts us on par with Greece, which, as you know, is teetering on the edge of disaster, probably already in all kinds of trouble. That's how serious our situation is. And why is that so serious? Of course, we know how efficient government is, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the root cause of it is subsidies. Subsidies are simply money doled out by the government on the basis of so-called consideration for the common man and the poorest of the poor, but actually political. just the fuel subsidy, which is subsidy for kerosene, petrol and diesel, is about 2.5% of the GDP. So if we are able to eliminate that subsidy, our fiscal deficit will come down very dramatically. And if the fiscal deficit is reduced, the pressure on inflation will ease, because like the current account deficit, which needs to be financed, the fiscal deficit, if the government is living beyond its means, the government has to finance it. How do they finance it? What economists call deficit financing. How do they do deficit financing? In two ways. One is they will borrow from the market and from the lender of the last resort, namely Reserve Bank of India. And we know that borrowing to meet your current expenses is not very sustainable. Any finance expert will tell you that if you have to borrow in order to meet your expenses, then you are not very credit worthy. The other way of financing the deficit is to print notes. And the government is doing both. In fact, the government is one of the largest borrowers in the Indian economy. So it crowds out the private borrowers. And then it affects banks, because the banks have less money to lend, and so on and so forth. So that's how critical the fiscal deficit is. So if we have a fiscal deficit of something like 8 to 11% or 10 to 11%, that is